As my first video on this channel, I wanted to start out with one of my favorite brands, GmbH. When we talk about independent fashion brands surviving in 2025 and 2026, we have to acknowledge how brutal the industry has become, between rising production costs in Europe, declining wholesale, retail instability, and high interest rates. Even respected brands are struggling. GmbH facing financial pressure isn't shocking. It's indicative of a wider structural issue in fashion. Independent labels today are squeezed between conglomerates like LVMH and fast fashion giants that can replicate trends at a possible speed. For a brand like GmbH, the challenge isn't just creativity, it's scale without dilution. That's what makes it less survival interesting. GmbH was founded in Berlin in 2016 by Benny Alexander Husby and dissect. I hope I say the names right. The two met on the Berlin dance floor in 2015, which already tells you everything about the brand's DNA. This isn't a fashion house born in a ballroom, it's born in a subculture, and with that comes the strong energy that this brand carries. The backgrounds are complementary in a way that feels almost strategic. Benjamin's experience as a photographer working with publications like Dazed and ID gave the brand strong literacy. Seth has formal training in menswear, brings structure and tailoring discipline. One understands image and visual communication, the other understands garment architecture. That tension, image versus construction, is visible in every collection. What makes GmbH distinct isn't statement that it's streetwear or sustainable. Those terms are too vague now. The real language of GmbH lies in silhouette, restraint and history and nostalgia. The tailoring is often strict, sharp shoulders, elongated sleeves, fitted and white-tipped trousers that create a controlled, almost upright posture. But then they strike that precision with industrial details, knee-high leather boots, metal hardware, heavy zippers. There's always tension between discipline and rebellion. It's masculinity, but not the traditional European masculinity. It feels informed by migrant identity and the underground culture in Berlin, by diaspora, by club culture. It's not the polished luxury masculinity of Paris, it's Berlin at 3 a.m. A take that separates them from what we typically see in European luxury. In some ways, you could draw parallels to Humber Lang's industrial minimalism or Rick Owens' dark subcultural romanticism. A GmbH feels more grounded, less theatrical, more lived in, and leaning towards ready to wear. And then there is sustainability. The pivot toward that stock wasn't just ethical, it was economic necessity. When they visited a high-end factory in Milan and realized they couldn't afford newly produced luxury fabrics, they turned to excess inventory instead. But constraint became identity. This stock forces limitation, and limitation forces sharper design decisions. When you cannot choose any fabric you want, you design around what exists. That creates a rawness in GmbH's garments. They do not feel overdeveloped, they feel intentional. In a market where sustainability is often marketing language, GmbH's approach feels materially embedded in the clothes themselves. Another layer that sets them apart is their willingness to engage politically, especially in today's climate where brands are often criticized for being tone-deaf, opportunistic, and stealing designs from small designs. GmbH's political engagement feels deliberate rather than reactive. Many luxury brands avoid taking explicit political positions because the global retail networks rely on staying commercially neutral, where GmbH doesn't completely separate politics from products. Their collection often explore identity, division, migration, and belonging, themes directly connected to their own backgrounds as children of immigrant families. The garments feel autobiographical. That emotional honesty is part of why the brand resonates beyond aesthetics. But it is also a risk. Political positioning can complicate global expansion, and that tension between integrity and commercial survival is something the brand will continue to navigate. As seen in the autumn-winter 2024 collection, the brand had blazers made of the known traditional Palestinian pattern called the hatta, with a known Palestinian scarf on the shoulders, and other looks such as this broad shoulder pattern, light gray coat, with a knee-high boots with zipper detailing styled with the hatta scarf that is known to be referred as the desert wrap or face mask. It was their visual language by addressing the ongoing conflict and the broader themes of displacement and identity. The show started up with a 10-minute speech that addressed this political tension that was going on and is still current. Couldn't find the clip of the speech, but finding out Seth has stated in the speech, as fashion designers, we are normally left to express express our thoughts through clothing and leave the rest to the imagination. But we live in dangerous times when the precision of words is needed. Following the collection that displays the looks mentioned before that amplifies the message of cultural and political expression while still keeping the nod to the Berlin and culture with full leather looks, contrast pipings, and leather boots. As each of their collection are unique and have their own message behind them, and it's personally hard to point out one as my favorite, there are looks that comes to my mind, the blazers and coats with a symmetric wrap, and the combination of the knee-high leather boots paired with a traditional suit, and the off-shoulder full fur coats, which adds softness to an otherwise structured silhouette. However, if I'm being critical, and I think you have to be when you truly respect a brand, are the brand's heavily charged political symbolism retaining to the core aesthetic felt strategic. This was not a retreat but a recalibration. The collection with such strong messaging probably gaining a new audience based on their political and division messaging in the collections, I think it was smart of them to fall back to the core DNA of their brand, where it's been leather looks, structured blazers, and club-inspired tailoring that solely reflect them as a brand. The latest collection, Fall 2026. As much as I respect their willingness to take a stand, fashion still operates within an entertainment and commercial system. When a brand repeatedly centers a tragedy, it can create emotion fatigue. Not because the issue isn't important, but because the fashion platform has limits. There's always a tension between awareness, wearability, between message and longevity. With that said, there are a lot of big brands and investors, shareholders that all have political standpoints, but they do it behind closed doors, and that way they manage to get what the people want, which is fashion without the emotional fatigue that comes with political viewpoints. Besides that, the question is, how far can the DNA formula stretch? Can they evolve without losing the Berlin edge that made them compelling in the first place? That's the real test of longevity. For me personally, what made me fall in love with GmbH wasn't just one look. It was the consistency of mood, the tension, the emotional charge behind the clothes, and the rebellious feel that I love so much. In an industry obsessed with growth metrics, while moments, GmbH still feels intimate, almost stubbornly so. And maybe that's why it matters. Not because it's perfect, but because it feels intentional.